In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to create a set shot of a goose flying across the stage. And I've created 4 images of the goose with its wings moving downward from upward. We're going to create a cycle out of this of 6 positions. And the cycle is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 with the wings in the up position. Now we need to bring them back down, so we're going to go 3, 2. And then we're going to repeat that process. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2. Now I've drawn the geese. Right now they're just shaped drawings. I'm going to take the selection tool and I want to turn these into symbols. So I'm going to select the first one and I'm going to go to the modify menu and choose convert to symbol. And we're going to make this into a movie clip. I'm going to call it MC Goose 1. For my registration point, I'm going to set it in the center, but we're going to see that we'll need to move it so that it is consistent for the 4 different images. I'm going to do the same thing for the second goose. Modify, convert to symbol. We'll call this one MC Goose 2. And then the third goose. Modify, convert to symbol, MC Goose 3, and the last one is MC Goose 4. So in my library, I now have those 4 geese. I'm going to select those 4. I'm going to copy them. And I'm going to start a new project. We'll keep our stage at 550 by 400 so it doesn't take forever to get the goose across the stage. I'm going to set it for 12 frames per second. 24 would be way too fast for just a 6-position cycle. And let's make our back color into maybe a nice light blue. Okay, I copied those symbols from the library. I'm just going to paste them here on the stage. They're all there. I'm just going to delete them, so now they're in my library for this project. Now what I want to do is go in and look at each symbol individually. So I'm going to double click on it to get into the editor for that symbol. And here's the issue. The registration mark is in the center of our goose. And if I look at MC Goose 4 in comparison to 1, in 1 it's basically here towards the bottom of the goose. In MC Goose 4, notice it's way up here above the goose. We want to have a consistent registration mark so that when we swap these symbols out, basically we're replacing the goose really in the same position. And so what I'm going to do is use the eyeball as the best position for that. And I'm going to select my goose and I'm just going to drag it so that the eye of the goose is basically right where that little crosshairs is. The crosshairs are our registration point. So that's goose 4. I'm going to come back in and do goose 3. We'll do goose 2. And we'll do goose 1. Okay, now I'm going to go back to my stage, scene 1, and I'm going to take goose 1 and position him on the left side of the stage. Might just have the beak coming onto the stage. And that is my first keyframe. Now I'm going to create another keyframe. Just insert keyframe. So frame 2 is now the same as frame 1. What I'm going to do is select the goose and go into the properties. And we can see I'm looking at an instance of MC Goose 1. There's a swap button here, and I'm going to swap it for goose 2. Okay, so frame 2 is now goose 2, and I want to have him move forward. I'm going to select the goose, hold down the shift key, and press the right arrow. That'll move him 10 pixels. I'm going to press it again. We'll move him 20 pixels with each frame. So now I'm going to go to frame 3 insert a keyframe. I'm going to go ahead and move the goose 20 pixels. Go to the properties and swap it for goose 3. Let's do the same thing on frame 4. I'm going to insert a keyframe. Move the goose 20 pixels. And we'll swap it for goose 4. Okay, now in frame 5, insert a keyframe. Move the goose 20 pixels. And here we're going to swap it going back down the list for goose 3. Frame 6, insert a keyframe. Move it 20 pixels. Swap the goose for goose 2. Now that completes my cycle. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, and then I just keep repeating that. If we scrub the playhead, we can see the goose flying. So that's one cycle. So now, next frame, insert a keyframe, move it 20 pixels, swap it for goose 1. Insert a keyframe, move 20 pixels, and now I'm going to swap from 1 to 2. Insert keyframe, 20 pixels to the right, swap for goose 3. Insert keyframe, move the goose, swap it for goose 4. Okay, we have 2 more frames to go to finish out this cycle. Insert keyframe. Move 20 pixels. Swap for goose 3. Insert keyframe. Move it 20 pixels. And now we'll swap back for goose 2. So we now have 2 flight cycles, and we can again scrub our playhead and watch the goose fly. And if I wanted to, I could actually test it at this point and see how smooth the animation is. Not bad. Okay, so I want to continue this process till I get the goose all the way off the stage on the right. And I can keep adding frames, moving the goose 20 pixels, and swapping it. Here's another little trick, is on my timeline, there's a button here to edit multiple frames. So I'm going to turn that on, and I can drag how many frames I want to see at once. As I do that, you'll notice we can now see all these frames at one time. And I can also edit those frames. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all these frames. I'm going to right click and choose copy frames. I'm going to bring up my rulers, view, rulers. I'm going to drag a ruler to where the tail is of this last goose. And I'm simply choosing the tail because that's going to be what I'm going to, the easiest part I'm going to see when I copy these frames. So right click, copy frames. I'm going to come over here. Actually, I'm going to skip a frame and say insert keyframe or blank keyframe. And on that blank keyframe, I'm going to paste frames. I'm going to drag this little marker here, so I'm only seeing the frames that I pasted. And I'm going to hold down the Shift key and select all those frames. And now I'm going to move all of these frames till the tail is right where I want it on that last frame of frame 12. And now I'm going to move all these frames together, holding down the Shift key and pressing the right arrow twice. That should give me a pretty good animation there. Now I've got this extra frame in here, and I just separated the frame so I remembered where I started and ended. I'm simply going to remove that frame. Okay, I'm going to basically do the same thing again, except this time let's copy all 4 of these cycles. So there you can see our entire cycle. I'm going to select a frame, hold down the Shift key, select another frame. I'm going to right click, choose copy frames. I'm going to skip a frame, insert a blank keyframe, and on that frame I'm going to right click and choose paste frames. And then once again I want to see all those frames that I just pasted. But before I do that, let's add another ruler guide at the tail end of that last goose. So now I'm going to take all of these frames and I'm going to move them. I think I might have moved them up a little bit. I'm just going to nudge them all down slightly. And now I'm going to move them forward again another 20 pixels. And let's get rid of this last frame. So I could have simply done that whole process of repeating frames one at a time, or in this case grouping and pasting frames. Makes it a little bit faster. I'm going to turn the edit multiple frames off. And let's just scrub our playhead. So we can see the goose flying across the stage. Let me just go ahead and test the movie. Looks pretty good. Let's add another layer. I'm going to name the first layer Goose. And I'll name this layer Cloud. I'm going to drag the cloud to behind the goose, and on this layer let's simply draw a nice little cloud. If you want, you could hide the goose. I'm going to take the oval tool. I'm going to use a stroke of none and a fill of white, and let's just draw some overlapping ovals. And there's our little cloud. And I'm going to select that. I'm going to take a brush, a little bit of a gray. Oops, let's go back and make that white. I want to deselect it here before I choose my color. Then I'm going to take a brush, select that, and I'm going to, with the brush, choose to paint selection, and we'll get a little bit larger brush, and I'm going to just kind of come here around the bottom and just adding a gray stroke, so we'll give a little bit of a look of rain maybe from this cloud. And I'm going to come in here and just add a few more little half arcs just to give it a little bit of depth. And there's our cloud. I'm going to go ahead and make that into a movie clip. So I select it, convert to symbol. I'm going to call it MC cloud. And one of the reasons I'm going to do that is so that in the properties I can apply a filter of a blur. It'll just soften it a little bit. And now let's test our movie. So the cloud just helps sell this idea that the goose is flying in the sky, and we see the cloud in the background.